Check the description for the following discount codes. Load cells really need no introduction in the world of sim racing. We all know that is really our preferred method of measuring brake input, pressure over travel. Makes it easier to modulate to trail brake, and load cells are really the industry standard. With some of the higher end stuff is using hydraulic cylinders with hydraulic pressure sensors, but again it's still measuring pressure. It's just the pedal feels slightly different to your typical elastomer, stack and load cell. This is a type of load cell you would find in the Fanatic pedals, for example. Quite common, works perfectly well. This is from MVH Studios, and it's designed to work with the Logitech series of pedals, everything from the G25 right up to the pedals that come with the G923, their current top model. In fact, you can see on the floor there, my pedals are in bits, and this is of course the brake pedal from my G920, which is what I've got. Now, what we get from MVH Studios essentially replaces this entire piece here. It actually puts an extra piece in the bottom here. This is your potentiometer rotary. That comes out, it all gets replaced. So let me show you what we get. As I say, this is the load cell. We also get in here, it's a little controller box or sort of USB, well, no, it's not USB interface. Definitely not a USB interface. This actually fits directly in place of the potentiometer and goes into the original wiring harness. So it works on console as well as PC. So yeah, definitely no USB interface. So this is just a little control box essentially that takes a signal from the load cell and turns it into something that mimics the output, I guess, of the original potentiometer from a voltage perspective, that is. There's two little screws on here that you can adjust, and this box stays external once you've fitted this all, and this is how you can set things like your dead zones, top and bottom, and calibrate how hard you want to be able to press the pedal to reach 100% braking force. So this is why it works on console as well as PC, because obviously console users have no software adjustment or in-game adjustment a lot of the time, but having two little pots that you can turn there with a small flat-headed screwdriver to set everything up so it works, perfect. It means it's universally compatible, so that's great. In fact, here's the little loom that will plug into the original Logitech loom, and the wires are color coded. You just match them up, can't go wrong. There's then this little sort of 3D printed piece here that the cables will run inside of to keep them neat and keep them separated, and then this clips on the side of the pedal here. I think it actually clips in where this potentiometer comes out of to hold the wires neatly in place. Now, I won't be showing you all this because there is an excellent tutorial video on the MVH Studios website. Shows you how to take apart your Logitech pedals, how to install all of this in great detail, and how to calibrate it using those little screws there as well. So what I'll be doing is I'll be assembling all this, obviously, but I'm not going to waste your time watching my half-baked attempt at doing a how-to when they've done a really good one on a desk with a nice overhead camera and detailed text showing you everything. There's no point doing what's already been done. It's great, and you should follow those instructions should you buy one of these. Should you buy one of these, there is a discounted link in the description. They're £79.90 before the discount that I think I've got a 5 or 10% discount. I can't quite remember now, but whatever it is, it'll be below in the description. So I think 80 notes, which is basically perhaps 72 notes with a 10% discount, is actually a reasonably fair price for this, because not only have you got a reasonable amount of parts here, springs and, well, these just look like bits of rubber, like wire insulation, but they're going to work in a similar way to elastomers, which I'll tell you about in a minute. Some 3D printed parts, the little load cell amplifier, the load cell itself. This shaft replaces the original shaft, as does this piece at the top here. I say this all goes. And the time to produce all this, assemble the bits that are assembled, I don't think 80 quid is too bad at all. If you, if you're a tradesman and you earn, I don't know, £40 an hour as an electrician or something like that, it would take an hour at least to 3D print, and the time it takes to actually finish it all off, put it all together. You're gonna spend an hour. These little circuit boards in here, these amplifiers need making up as well. I don't think 80 quid's bad money at all when you think about it like that. And of course they have to make a profit as well. Comparable kits, the Leo Bodner one, what is that, £120 or £160, something like that? I can't quite remember now, but this is definitely cheaper. And looking at it, there's no reason why it shouldn't work just as well as any other load cell option. So what we've got is this little piece here. Again, I won't do it live because it will take a reasonable amount of time and it's already done for you by MVH. This goes in the bottom here, that way round. And then our load cell actually goes into this, like that. And then what you would have, when it's all assembled, this goes through here like this and sits above the load cell. There's a little nodule on the top of the load cell and a little cutout on the bottom there. It sits on it like that, and as you depress the brake pedal, your springs obviously are going to be here, and that applies pressure downward onto the top of the load cell, and that's how it measures the force you're applying at the pedals. Now, this is designed to work with the MVH Studios progressive brake spring. This is a separate modification that you could just buy prior to this load cell one. G923 brake pedals come with a progressive spring, so there's no need to use the MVH one if you've got a G923. G920s like mine do not, and they have that rubber insert at the bottom, so you would remove that. Again, this is all in the video instructions, so I'm just kind of briefly talking you through what we do and what we've got. There's an additional spring here. This is what you can use to tune how hard the pedal is. You've got an additional spring that will slide over the middle here, so that will work in conjunction with the big spring that you would have from standard progressive one if you've changed it, or if you've got an earlier model set of pedals, not the G923 ones. And then there is, as I say, what looks like a couple of screws there. This just looks like hose, fuel hose or similar. It's single ply, and different lengths you can see there, and you would use these or the spring or a set of all three or four, however you want to do it, stacked up on this. I may as well put them on to show you, and this will determine how hard it is to press the pedal down, because some people may have these still sat just on carpet and not actually bolted down to anything, the pedals that is, in which case you might want to retain the original weight of the pedal and not increase its stiffness, which means it will still also travel a fair distance. And this is kind of interesting actually. I was thinking about this. I'm yet to obviously try it because I haven't installed it yet, but if you retain the original spring and don't stiffen it up, whilst the load cell is measuring pressure, the pedal is still going to travel quite a bit, and it is all adjustable, so you could still get your muscle memory based on how hard you're pressing that pedal. But I think to really get the benefit out of this setup, you would want to stiffen it up using these spring and other inserts, because what we've learned in recent years, and the likes of Acertech, for example, really push having a very heavy brake pedal with almost no movement, is that your brain, your muscles get faster and more accurate muscle memory with slightly less travel on your brake pedal. Now, I don't like no travel on my brake pedal, like how the Acertech Invicta ones first came out. They now have a long travel kit. For me, that didn't move enough. I almost felt like it wasn't moving at all. But at the same time, the G920 one would move a reasonable distance once you've removed the rubber insert, that is, which a lot of people do. I left the rubber insert in because, like I say, I'm in the middle. I like a bit of travel, but not too much travel before the pedal, hardens up. This is all personal preference, of course. But yeah, depending how you have this all set up, whether you've got a rig and they're bolted down and you can stiffen them right up, or whether you're on carpet still, desk mounted under desk or something, maybe you need to keep it a bit softer. But ultimately, you will be measuring pressure from this point forward, using the load cell instead of travel. And I think even on carpet, you can get away with stiffening things up, you know, a little bit. And the point about, and the other thing is, of course, modulation is where you get to that point and you're just sort of increasing and decreasing pressure to sort of balance it between locking up and not, you know. And that's going to be far easier and more accurate with a pressure-based system versus a travel-based system. And Logitech, of course, also add in that curve to their braking effectiveness, so it kind of ramps up the further you go down the pedal. Something else that can be changed and adjusted. But yeah, anyway, enough of this waffle. We've seen everything that we get here as part of the kit. Oh, almost everything. We get some nice little sort of like external wire sheathing that we would put over this once it's all installed to make it look neat and tidy once it's in. But I'll get this all assembled. In fact, I'll get it all on this, and then I'll show you a little of that all done before I put it back and actually start using it. So let's get this all together now. Yeah, so that was pretty easy to install. The instructions were super clear. It's a video, you know, installation guide. You can't really go wrong. Probably took me about 15 minutes or so at a complete guess. And this is what we're left with on the pedal itself. The potentiometer is gone. That's sat on the side there. Its complete assembly comes off. You take this out completely and replace this whole cylindrical section here. The original one is here. Along with this sort of ratchety mechanism that goes with the potentiometer. There's teeth mesh there, so that's all completely gone, and you're left with the load cell at the bottom there, this new assembly here. I've gone for the stiffest possible configuration, so there's very little movement in that pedal before it really stiffens up. And so I've used the extra spring and the longest piece of tube in there to be able to do that. Those of you who are familiar with G920 pedals and springs will notice that is the original non-progressive spring in the pedal still there. And the reason for that is I've got a little bag somewhere with about 4 or 5 different progressive springs in, and I can't find them no matter how hard I look. I've searched everywhere. I do not know where they've gone. But in this application and for this review, it doesn't really matter. We're testing how the load cell works, not changing the pedal feel independently of the load cell. So if anything, this is almost potentially a better test because I'm using that original spring. But then I've stiffened it up anyway, using an additional spring and a piece of tube. So the fact that I'm using a linear spring almost makes no difference versus a progressive spring, because the spring isn't really going to move very far. So that feeling of it stiffening up using a progressive spring is not going to make a whole lot of difference. If you run this softer, then yes, I would recommend putting the progressive spring in, because that gives you a feeling similar to what elastomers do in the more high-end pedals. You know, they'll compress initially soft and then they'll stiffen up as they reach the end of their deformation limits. And that's what a progressive spring does, but it just feels slightly different and a little less hydraulic. Which is what the elastomers are designed more to feel a bit like, I suppose. So yeah, very little travel now, which is how I like it. Not none, but not loads. Somewhere in the middle. So we'll get this installed. I'll get this installed. There's nobody else here except the cat, who, go on if you can see Ori. She's asleep in my play seat challenge, which is where she always ends up whenever that chair comes out. Fully sound, out for the count. Anyway, I'll get this installed. I'll have to evict her from her slumber at some point to be able to test it out, and then I'll get back to you in a while, or as it may actually be in a few seconds, to tell you how it all performs. It was actually a bit of fun playing around with a Logitech set of pedals. It's been a while since I've had to do that, but it all went in and back together perfectly. I'll put some footage up now of me testing it out, and one of the things I noticed straight away, nothing related to the load cell. Before I put the load cell in, I was just getting a feel for the pedal, you know, as it was. And it's such a night and day difference between, you know, an entry-level Logitech set of pedals and what I'm used to racing with on the daily. But yeah, that was interesting. But then, you know, going from the non-load cell setup to the MVH Studio load cell kit was also a night and day difference. Partly in feel, because that extra spring in there, the additional preload and weight to the pedal was very obviously noticeable. But also the way the braking felt in game versus how it did before on the potentiometer. Obviously the potentiometer is still in this bag here. I haven't put it back in because I'll probably leave the load cell kit in. You know, these days it's infrequent that I get Logitech pedal stuff come in, and maybe another load cell kit will materialise, in which case I can swap that one out that's in there now for a new one at some point in the future, and do a comparison. But yeah, the old potentiometer is definitely staying in the bag for now. But yes, I think for $79.90 minus any discount that I have, if you're someone that's going to stay with your Logitech setup for some time, then it's definitely a worthy upgrade. And actually I would also say, if you've got it bolted to a rig or even a play seat challenge like I have in the video footage that I'll have just put up or that you'll see now, I would say get the progressive spring as well if you don't already have one. Because even though when I was here at the desk squeezing it, I was like, oh yeah, it's not much travel. Underfoot with the standard spring, even in addition to the extra spring and pipe that came with this kit, I would still have it slightly heavier with slightly less travel. But this is very much personal preference. Everyone likes brake pedals to feel differently. You know, that's entirely up to you, entirely up to me. But you can see in the footage here, there's a bit at the end where I move the pedal as far as I can, I think, and you'll see how far it moves. Because obviously you can compress the springs completely with the strength of your leg. They're never so hard that you're not going to be able to do that. Setting up the, I was going to say end float, what's measuring crankshaft play? Setting up the dead zones and the sensitivity was very, very straightforward. Again, there is a tutorial video, and I'm going to link to both the installation video and the tutorial with the calibration video in the description. So for those of you that are thinking about getting one, you can see what you've got in store for yourself when it comes to doing the installation, and then how you tweak those two little screws, those little potentiometers, I'm assuming they are, to set it up once you've got it installed to how you like it, because you can make it more sensitive or less sensitive, and obviously dead zones can be adjusted plus and minus depending how you want them to be as well. But it all worked flawlessly and it was really easy to install, and should I want to, everything is here in this bag for me to put it back to standard should I need to for any reason. So if I was about to say if you had a warranty issue, but you've still opened your pedals up, which obviously would void your warranty anyway, but you'll have a much better chance of getting something warranted if you put this back in than if you posted it off with your load cell kit still attached. So yes, it gets a thumbs up from me. MVH Studios have done a great job with this little kit. It's easy to install, it's easy to set up and tune. Dodgy. And and I think the price is very, very fair for what it is. And if you're going to be a Logitech person for life or for the foreseeable future, it's a worthy upgrade. So links in the description to the two videos show you how to install it and how to set it up, and also a discounted link to the MVH Studio website where you can buy one of these kits should you want to. As always, thank you very much for watching and take it easy.